My name is Hannah Pierce. I'm 29. At 6:42 p.m. on a Tuesday, my phone buzzed on the dryer while warm towels thumped in the drum. The message preview was just 10 words, short enough to look harmless. When I tapped it open, the room felt smaller. Don't contact us. Don't come around. You're on your own now. Dad. A second later, 3 blue dots flickered in the family chat. My older sister Lily reacted with a thumbs up, then added a single word, as bright and sharp as a dropped glass. Finally. I stood there with a half-folded shirt in my hands and 1,000 replies forming on my tongue like storm clouds. I could have typed a paragraph about loyalty. I could have named dates and bank transfers and late-night calls when Lily begged for a temporary bridge. I could have asked if this was a joke, if Mom was standing beside Dad, nodding. Instead, I watched my thumbs move like they belonged to someone steadier. Perfect. I'll cancel the auto payments first thing tomorrow. For a breath, the laundry room was quiet except for the mechanical heartbeat of the dryer. Then I felt it, the shift, not in the air, in the thread. The typing dots started, paused, started again. Silence exploded into ringing. Missed calls stacked over each other, a frantic deck of cards. Messages arrived in ugly bursts. Mom, Hannah, what is this? What are you doing? Dad, what kind of daughter talks to her family like that? Lily, are you seriously threatening us? Over Wi-Fi? Threatening, I thought, as if I hadn't been paying that bill since Lily's influencer era demanded faster uploads and better lighting. As if utilities didn't magically route themselves from my account to their house at the end of every month. As if groceries didn't appear because I tapped my card after work, pretending I loved the ritual of putting away food I wouldn't eat. If I sounded calm, it was because I'd been practicing calm for years. Calm when Dad said he was soul tired and quit early. Calm when Mom followed her peace out of her job. Calm when Lily called at 11:57 p.m., sobbing about rent and brand deals that weren't converting. Calm when Christmas came, and I quietly paid the property taxes as a gift because who wants to talk about liens over eggnog? Calm is a mask that keeps the room from catching fire. I put my phone face down on the dryer and stared at the scratched linoleum until the buzzing dulled into a single, low note. In the next room, the kettle clicked off. I poured water over a cheap tea bag like it could fix anything. My boyfriend Ethan had texted earlier to ask if I wanted pho after his late shift. I typed, rain check, family stuff blew up. Then I deleted it. He'd take one look at my face and know. Ethan is good at 2 things I never learned from my parents, showing up and shutting up. I would need both by morning. The night stretched to a bad rhythm. Fold, buzz, ignore. Fold, buzz, ignore. The messages changed tone like a choir under a panicked conductor, outrage to disbelief to pleading, then back to outrage. Somewhere around midnight, Mom composed a paragraph about sacrifice and how she couldn't believe I'd do this to family. Lily sent a voice note, breathy and high, accusing me of financial abuse, as if giving her $300 a month so she wouldn't default on her lease had been an elaborate act of cruelty. At 1:23 a.m., the word traitor arrived, naked and unoriginal. I muted the thread, brushed my teeth, and sat on the edge of my bed. My apartment smelled like lavender, the artificial kind. I stared at the ceiling and thought of Grandpa Will's hands, knotted, steady, always warm. 3 days earlier, we'd had lunch at a diner he liked because the coffee was honest. I hadn't meant to say anything. Then the check came, and he watched me feed my card to the black leather billfold without blinking. He placed his palm over it and said, not unkindly, Hannah. That was all it took. Words spilled out like something finally unscrewed. The bills, the temporary coverage that hardened into habit, the way Dad called me our responsible girl, while handing me a list for the supermarket, the way Mom said I was so good with money, as if that skill existed to make their lives soft. I told Grandpa about the December I covered the taxes. Just that once, I'd promised myself, because Lily's followers needed a new kitchen backdrop for the holidays. He listened like a quiet shoreline, taking the waves without flinching. When I finished, he stirred his coffee. Stop, he said. Not slow down, not renegotiate, stop. I laughed because I have always laughed when something scares me. He didn't. It's not punishment, he said. It's the truth catching up. I didn't ask what he meant by truth. I was afraid he'd say what I already knew, that this was never about money. It was about a family that had mistaken my love for a credit line. Now, hours after the text I would never unsee, I lay in the dark and trusted the ache behind my eyes. A person can feel grief for a thing that isn't dead yet. A version of us was dying. Maybe it needed to. At 6:00 a.m., my phone vibrated with the alarm I always snooze twice. Before I could reach it, a second vibration landed. Grandpa. "Come over," he said when I answered. His morning voice is more gravel than air. First thing. "Is everything okay?" A pause. "Bring your calm face," he said. "You'll need it." I put on jeans and a sweater without thinking about color, tied my hair into a not-sure ponytail, and drove across a city that hadn't opened its eyes yet. The sky was that pre-dawn bruise. I watched the streets I grew up on slide by, the bakery with the uneven T in its sign, the park where Dad taught me to ride a bike by letting go before he said he would. For a second, I felt 8 years old again, tilted toward the pavement, scraping my knees on promises. Grandpa's house smelled like coffee and furniture polish. He had already set the table. 2 mugs, a plate of buttered toast, a manila folder, the thickness of a short book. He didn't say good morning. He didn't ask if I'd slept. He pulled a chair out like I was going to need it. "What is that?" I asked. "History," he said, "and a way out." He pushed the folder toward me. My name wasn't on it, but my life was inside it anyway. The first page, a property deed older than Lily's Instagram account, older than my undergraduate loans. The address at the top lived in my mouth like a tooth I couldn't stop worrying. The house my parents called home, the one with the squeaky bathroom window and the maple tree that dripped helicopters every spring. I flipped pages with careful fingers. Notarized documents, tax statements, letters from an attorney's office that looked like it belonged in a courtroom drama. My eyes scanned without absorbing. Then a line finally focused. Owner of record, William Arthur Pierce. "Grandpa." I looked up. He was watching my face as if waiting for a storm to pass over it. "They never owned it," he said, gentle but final. "Not for one day." I felt something tilt inside me, like a room you don't realize is crooked until you set a marble down. "They said the house was—" I didn't finish. The sentence knew how it ended. "In 2013, they asked to stay a few months while they got their feet under them," Grandpa continued. "I said yes. I believe them." He took a toast triangle, didn't eat it. "They never paid a dime of rent, not once, not taxes, not upkeep. They started treating it like I was visiting them. On Christmas last year, your mother told me to eat before you come because she didn't want to deal with leftovers." I pressed my thumb into the table edge. A bloom of red appeared where my nail bit skin. "You didn't tell me." "I didn't want to make you choose," he said, "but you already did. When you picked up their bills, you chose to be their safety net. Without a net, people learn to walk." He flipped to the last page and tapped it. 60-day notice of termination of occupancy. Dated, signed, certified. He pointed at 3 envelopes lined up like small coffins. One for your parents, one for Lily, one for other adult occupants in case she's got someone staying over who thinks a couch is a lease. I stared. All I could think of was the text, "Don't contact us," and how fast a door can slam on a person who's been standing on the porch holding groceries. "They'll say I'm cruel," he said, reading the thought off my face. "They'll say you made me do it." "I didn't," I said, but my voice made it sound like I might have liked to. He reached across the table and covered my hand with his the way he did when I was small and tried to fold a paper airplane. "You didn't. This is mine to do. And Hannah," he added, his eyes steady and unblinking, "they won't thank you for stopping. They'll hate you for proving it was never gratitude. It was hunger." Outside, a mail truck groaned to the curb. Grandpa slid the envelopes into a larger one, sealed it like a sacrament, and stood. "Breakfast first," he said. "Then the post office." The toast on my plate had cooled into cardboard. I took a bite anyway. Across the table, the manila folder stared at me, patient as a judge. I thought of Lily's "finally," of Dad's 10 words, of what people do when the lights go out and the story they've sold doesn't match the bill in their hands. I didn't know it yet, but by sundown, everyone else would know too. Grandpa's old truck creaked down the hill like a slow confession. I followed behind in my little Honda, watching his taillights blink red through the early morning fog. The big envelope sat on the passenger seat beside me, humming with weight I couldn't measure. By 9 a.m., those letters, each one stamped and sealed, were on their way. My parents' eviction notice, hand-delivered by the same postal service they used to send me Christmas cards signed, "Love, Mom and Dad and Lily." Now it was paper against paper, family reduced to legal phrasing. When we got back, Grandpa poured fresh coffee and sat in his armchair like a man who had just finished a war. "It'll take a day or two for them to read it," he said, and about 5 minutes after that for the phone to start ringing. He wasn't wrong. At 6 p.m. I glanced at my phone. 23 missed calls. Then one more came in. "Lily." I didn't answer. Seconds later, her message popped up. "Lily, are you proud of yourself? Mom's crying. Dad's pacing. You made Grandpa do this, didn't you?" I stared at it, the little preview window glowing like a cigarette burn. I didn't reply. Instead, I scrolled Instagram. The first thing that hit my feed was her story. 3 crying emojis, a picture of the house, and a caption in white letters. "We're being thrown out of our own home like garbage." The sound that came out of me wasn't quite laughter. It was that sharp exhale people make when they're too tired to scream. I turned the phone over and let the screen go black. By 7 p.m., relatives were already calling. Aunt Julie first, then Uncle Tom, then Megan, my cousin who loves drama like it's a vitamin supplement. Julie's voice cracked through the speaker. "Honey, what's going on? Your mom says she's being evicted? Surely this is a misunderstanding." I took a long breath, steady and deliberate. "No misunderstanding," I said. "They've lived there rent-free for 12 years. Grandpa owns the house. I've been covering their bills." Silence stretched on the line. Then a hesitant, "All of them?" "All of them." Another pause, then very softly, "Oh." I could almost hear her recalculating years of family gossip. Tom texted later, "Not surprised." That was all. Megan sent me a sad face emoji followed by, "Still love you, though." But online, the story was out of my hands. By midnight, I was the villain of a narrative I didn't write. Lily's caption had bloomed into dozens of reposts, each one flavored with outrage. "Can't believe people treat their parents like this. Money makes monsters. Some kids forget who raised them." And my favorite, "She's evil. She threw her own family onto the street." None of them mentioned how the street was a house with a fully paid mortgage and 12 years of free living. None of them mentioned how their evil daughter had been the silent accountant of their comfort. When I finally managed to sleep, my dreams were static. The next morning, Grandpa didn't look surprised when I told him about the posts. He stirred sugar into his coffee and said, "They want sympathy. It's cheaper than rent." I wanted to laugh, but my chest hurt too much. He added, "Don't defend yourself online. The truth doesn't need your comments. It just needs time." I nodded, but part of me ached to scream the truth into the same internet that was chewing my name like gum. At lunch, I stepped outside to clear my head. My phone buzzed again. A text from Dad this time. "Dad, you did this." 3 words, that's all. I didn't reply. I'd learned that silence can be louder than anything you could type. By sunset, I sat by the window of my apartment watching the sky bleed orange into night. Ethan came by with takeout, still in his work scrubs. He took one look at my face and didn't ask a thing, just opened the bag and set out the food. "You don't have to talk," he said, "but eat something. You look like you're running on fumes." I smiled weakly. "You always know." He shrugged. "Nah, you just text shorter sentences when something's wrong." For the first time in hours, I felt my throat relax. He didn't need details. Sometimes the safest place is the silence after someone says, "I see you." Later that night, I called Grandpa to check in. He was calm. Too calm. "I'm fine," he said. "They'll start performing soon. You watch." "Performing?" "Your mother will post something poetic about betrayal. Your father will play stoic. And your sister, she'll double down. That's her talent." He wasn't guessing. He was right. By the next morning, I woke up to a text from my cousin Megan. "Have you seen Facebook?" I opened the app, half dreading it. There it was, Mom's post, public for the world. After decades of sacrifice, we've been betrayed by someone we loved. We're being forced out of our home. Yes, our home. Through manipulation, lies, and greed. Please respect our privacy while we figure out how to survive this. A photo of the house followed, bathed in soft morning light like it was being auctioned for pity. The comments section burned. Neighbors, church friends, distant relatives. Words like heartbreaking, disgusting, inhuman. They didn't name me. They didn't have to. Lily made sure everyone knew. She posted a screenshot of a Venmo request I'd sent months ago, $200 for utilities. Under it, she wrote, This is what family looks like when they only care about money. Unbelievable #hurt. I stared at it until the screen blurred. Notifications rolled like waves. People I hadn't spoken to since high school, strangers with profile pictures of sunsets, everyone united in their outrage. The internet doesn't need truth, it just needs someone to burn. But Grandpa was right again. That afternoon, at exactly 2:17 p.m., an email landed in every family inbox. The subject line read, "Facts regarding the residence at 2485 Cedar Hollow." I opened it, my hands trembling slightly. Grandpa's name was at the bottom, typed like a seal of judgment. The email read like a legal brief. "The property is legally and solely owned by William Arthur Pierce. My son and his family have lived there rent-free since 2013. They have not paid utilities, taxes, or upkeep for over a decade. For at least the last 4 years, my granddaughter Hannah has covered these costs entirely out of her own pocket. No agreement, written or verbal, ever transferred ownership of the home. I have issued a 60-day legal notice for them to vacate. This decision was mine alone." Then one final line, short and perfect. "Being family does not exempt anyone from responsibility." It landed like thunder. By evening, the comments on Mom's post started to shrink. Some deleted their sympathy emojis. A few switched sides entirely, quoting Grandpa's email. Others went quiet. The noise was starting to fade, but my mother wasn't finished. Sunday morning, she returned to the one place she knew people would listen. The church she hadn't attended in 3 years. During the prayer request portion, she stood up, trembling, and asked for spiritual support because her children had turned against her. By the time service ended, the gossip had spread like incense through the congregation. That afternoon, Mrs. Allen, my old Sunday school teacher, called Grandpa to ask what happened. He told her the truth, slowly, carefully, without anger. When he hung up, he looked almost peaceful. "They'll keep playing the victim," he said, "until the audience leaves." That night, when I got home, there was something in my mailbox. A plain envelope, no return address. Inside, a printout of a deleted Facebook post. Lily's words, captured before she thought to erase them. "I'm not about to get a job just because some old man wants to play judge." Underneath the printout, one handwritten note, "Keep this. People are watching." I sat on my couch, envelope in hand, feeling the air hum with a kind of justice I didn't ask for. Whoever sent it knew the truth was starting to surface, but I didn't know the biggest twist hadn't even arrived yet. Because 2 days later, a message appeared. From someone I hadn't heard from in 12 years. Someone who would turn everything upside down again. It started with a message request from a name I barely recognized. Adam Reed. The same Adam who sat next to me in sophomore biology, who once borrowed my notes and never gave them back. His message arrived at 8:34 p.m., polite, but strange enough to freeze my scrolling thumb. "Hey, Hannah. This might sound weird, but I think I stayed at your parents' house through Airbnb back in March. Recognized the kitchen from your sister's stories. Didn't realize it was your family until now." Airbnb? I read the message 3 times before the meaning settled in like cold rain. My parents didn't own that house. Grandpa did, which meant they were renting out someone else's property without permission. His property. I took a slow breath, typed back. "Are you sure it was them?" He replied almost immediately. "Yeah. It was listed as Cedar Hollow Retreat. The host name was Lily Grace. Looked exactly like your family home. Same maple tree, same porch. I can send the screenshots if you want." I felt the world tilt again. My hands were shaking as the images appeared. Photos of the living room I grew up in, rearranged like a catalog. A welcome basket on the coffee table. My mother's handwriting on a note that said, "Please remove shoes at entry. Thank you for choosing Cedar Hollow Retreat." There it was, proof of what Grandpa had suspected all along. They hadn't just lived off generosity. They'd turned it into a business. When I called Grandpa and told him, the line went quiet for so long I thought he'd hung up. Then he said, "Go get the guest book." "What?" "There's always a guest book," he said flatly. "People who like pretending they own things love to show off their hospitality." I hesitated. "You want me to go there?" "Yes. Tell them you're picking up old boxes or something. You'll know where to look." The next morning, I drove to that house, the house I used to think was home. The porch light was still the same amber bulb, the doorbell still leaning slightly left. Lily opened the door, mascara smudged, eyes puffy. "What do you want?" she snapped. "I left some things in the basement, just need to grab them." She hesitated but stepped aside. "Make it quick, Mom's upstairs." The air inside was different, cleaner, almost perfumed. a fake kind of clean. There were signs everywhere. Welcome guests. Wi-Fi password. Cedar 2023. A little chalkboard by the stairs that said, "Stay cozy." My heart pounded. They hadn't just done this once. They'd built a routine. I went down to the basement, the same one where I used to fold laundry on weekends. It was staged like a vacation rental. String lights, folded towels, a small wooden sign that read, "Relax and recharge." Behind the washing machine, half hidden under a box of cleaning supplies, was what I came for. A small decorative chest labeled "Supplies and Notes." Inside, Wi-Fi passwords, welcome cards, printed Airbnb reviews, and a spiral-bound guest book filled with cheerful handwriting. Thank you for the lovely stay. Loved the maple tree view. 5 stars for Lily and her sweet family. Dates, names, even payment references. March, April, June. They'd been doing this for months, maybe longer. I took photos of every page, heart hammering so loudly it drowned the quiet hum of the dryer. Then I slipped the book back, smoothed the towels, and walked out without looking back. By evening, the evidence was on Grandpa's table, printed, organized, labeled. He examined each page like an old detective. They turned my house into a motel, he said softly, and still cried victim when I asked them to leave. He called his lawyer the next morning. With proof of unauthorized subletting, the eviction moved faster. But my family didn't panic. They adapted. Within days, new rumors started spreading through the church and extended relatives. Mom told everyone Grandpa was losing his mind and that I'd manipulated him into signing papers he didn't understand. Lily told her followers she suspected forgery. Dad started visiting old neighbors, shaking his head and saying, "We're trying to get legal help. My father's confused. Hannah's behind all this." When I told Grandpa, his face didn't flinch. "Then we'll give them truth," he said. He called 4 of his oldest friends, the kind who had known him since high school, and invited them over for coffee. When they arrived, he handed each of them a thick folder: property deed, guest book photos, screenshots of Airbnb listings, even a notarized statement from his doctor confirming his mental clarity. He didn't raise his voice, he didn't accuse, he simply said, "This is what's real." His friends nodded quietly. One of them, a retired attorney, looked furious. "They won't be able to spin this, Will," he said. "Not anymore." Within days, the lies crumbled. The church gossip stopped. Even the nosy neighbor across the street, Mrs. Hill, who thrived on scandal, called to apologize. And then the court ruling came through. The eviction period was shortened from 60 days to 14. When I read the notice, my stomach twisted. Even after everything, I still felt that dull ache of guilt, the reflex to protect people who'd never protected me. Grandpa noticed. "Don't pity them," he said quietly. "They've lived off borrowed kindness for 12 years. This isn't cruelty, it's consequence." I nodded, but the guilt clung like smoke. That night, Ethan came over again. He found me sitting on the couch with my laptop open to Lily's Instagram page. Her latest post showed her standing in front of the house, hand on her heart, captioned, "No matter where life takes us, this will always be home. Love wins." I turned the screen toward him. "She's acting like they're moving because of love." He frowned. "They're acting, period." When he wrapped his arms around me, the shaking stopped. Still, a strange emptiness filled me. 12 years of invisible labor, erased by a single curated caption. A week later, Grandpa called. "They're packing," he said. "The neighbors saw boxes in the garage." My chest tightened. "Do you need me to come?" "No," he said. "They need to do this alone." Silence followed. Then he added, "You did the right thing, Hannah. You showed them life doesn't come with free refills." The next morning, I drove by the house. The curtains were gone. The porch was bare. The maple tree still stood, its leaves whispering in the wind, unbothered by human messes. The flower pot near the door had a crack running through it. Beneath it, something glinted. A key. They'd left it behind. That afternoon, Grandpa called again. "House is empty," he said simply. "You want it?" I swallowed hard. "No, I like my life as it is." He paused, then said something that would echo in my mind for weeks. "Peace doesn't always come from who leaves. Sometimes it comes from who you let go." And just like that, it was over. Or so I thought. Because 2 weeks later, an envelope appeared in my mailbox with my father's handwriting on it. Neat, deliberate, familiar. I opened it thinking, maybe, just maybe, it was an apology. It wasn't. Inside was a 4-page letter and a half-filled loan application, with my name already printed as a co-signer. The envelope smelled faintly of cologne, the same kind my dad used to wear every Sunday morning before church. It was expensive and bitter, the kind of scent that wanted to announce itself before he entered the room. I unfolded the first page. His handwriting was careful, deliberate, almost performative. Each word felt rehearsed, like he'd written it for an audience. Hannah, we've had a rough few months. Your mother hasn't been sleeping. Lily's struggling to get back on her feet. We're not angry anymore, just hurt. You've made your point. We just need a bit of help to start over. I've attached a small loan document. You wouldn't even have to pay anything. Just sign as co-signer so we can get approved. You're our daughter. We know you won't refuse. Love, Dad. Attached to the letter was a filled-out loan form. My name and social security number were already typed into the fields. The signature line left empty. For a long moment, I just stared at it. I didn't cry. I didn't even curse. I just laughed. That silent, breathless kind of laugh that hurts your stomach. After everything, after the texts, the eviction, the lies, the public humiliation, they still thought I was the backup plan. The ink wasn't even dry, but the pattern was ancient. They hadn't learned a thing. That evening I drove to Grandpa's. The sun was low, spilling gold across the wooden porch. He was outside, trimming roses, the air smelling faintly of cut grass and old peace. He saw the envelope in my hand and sighed before I even spoke. Let me guess, he said. They need money. Not money, I said. Credit. He held out his hand. I gave him the papers. He flipped through the pages, eyebrows barely moving. They filled this out themselves? Already had my information, just waiting for my signature. He nodded once. They haven't hit the bottom yet. They're still digging. I stood there for a while, the cicadas screaming in the trees, the sound sharp and endless. Finally, I said, I don't know whether to be angry or just tired. Grandpa set the papers down on the porch railing. You're allowed to be both. Then he did what he always does when a storm brews, handled it quietly. He called his lawyer the next morning. Together they set up protective measures, a credit freeze, fraud alerts, and a legal note added to my records in case anyone tried to use my name again. They won't be able to touch a dime of yours, he told me. And if they try, they'll meet me in court before they meet you. For the first time in months, I felt safe. Days turned into weeks. The house at Cedar Hollow sat empty, curtains drawn, silence heavy. Grandpa refused to rent it out again. Some walls need time to forget, he said. Let them breathe. Meanwhile, the rest of the family scattered. Mom and Dad moved into a small duplex across town, finally working part-time jobs for the first time in over a decade. Lily bounced between friends' couches and half-baked social media schemes, freelance lifestyle coaching, influencer mentoring, anything that didn't require consistency. Every few weeks, I'd hear bits and pieces through the grapevine, Mom complaining about the rent, Dad muttering about ungrateful children, Lily posting new inspirational quotes about toxic people. And yet, none of them ever called me again. Not once. At first, that silence was eerie. Then it became freedom. I started sleeping through the night, cooking dinner without guilt. My apartment finally felt like mine, not just a temporary camp between obligations. Ethan noticed it first. You look lighter, he said one night as we walked home from a movie. I stopped carrying other people's weight, I answered. He smiled. That's a start. One weekend, Grandpa and I visited the old house together. The front door creaked like it was exhaling after years of holding its breath. Dust floated through slanted sunlight. The place looked smaller somehow, stripped of its illusions. In the corner of the living room sat one thing they'd left behind, a broken picture frame. I picked it up. It was a photo from Lily's college graduation. All of us smiling, her in the center, me holding the camera remote. Grandpa glanced at it, then said, You can keep it or you can let it go. Either way, don't carry it. I set it down gently on the windowsill. Let it go, I whispered. He smiled. Good choice. When we stepped outside, he locked the door and handed me the spare key. In case you ever change your mind. I won't, I said softly. He nodded. I know, but keep it anyway. Sometimes closure is just knowing you could go back and choosing not to. I slipped the key into my pocket. It felt lighter than I expected. Months passed. Life steadied. I got a promotion at work, started a small savings account for myself, the first one that didn't exist for anyone else. Ethan and I planned a trip, just the two of us, no guilt attached. Then, one late afternoon, I found myself sitting on my balcony as the sky turned from gold to violet, a mug of tea in my hands. The air smelled like rain and release. I thought about everything that had happened: the text, the eviction, the gossip, the lies, the final letter. And it hit me. This wasn't a tragedy, it was a transformation. For years, I'd been the glue keeping a broken picture together. But sometimes, letting the cracks show is the only way to build something stronger, even if that something is just yourself. Grandpa called me that night, his voice soft but steady. "You sound happy," he said. "I am," I replied. "Finally." He chuckled. "Good. Keep it that way. You've earned it." We said goodnight, and I sat there in the fading light, thinking about how peace doesn't announce itself. It just arrives quietly, like forgiveness, or like dawn after a long night. As I put the mug down, my phone buzzed. A new email notification. The subject line read, "Credit application denied. Pierce, Gregory." I smiled. For the first time, denial felt like justice. I closed my laptop, leaned back in my chair, and whispered to no one in particular. Some people don't break your boundaries. They pretend they never existed. You don't owe them another chance. You owe yourself the space to heal. The wind picked up, cool and calm, brushing against my face like a promise kept. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel responsible for anyone else's mess, just my own peace.